football analysis with over 70 years combined experience. This is the Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast.
NBA, some college, a little bit of everything.
You know, what can I say? But it wasn't going to happen here with him. I was okay with it because it wasn't about talent, I didn't think.
All right, let's get right to it.
All right, welcome back. Another edition of the Ryan, Goodman, and Tangway Along for the Ride podcast. Gary is not with us today, so it is the duo. You're stuck with the duo of Bob Ryan and myself. And we're going to go through some of the free agency news that has happened over the last week or so. We're going to go through Mike Brown's hiring by the Knicks. Where does Bob stand on that one? The Celtics big man trio. Where does this stand in all-time Celtics lore? We'll get to all that here soon. But first, we are presented, as always, by Prizepicks, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. The show is brought to you by Prizepicks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Download today and use that code CLNS to get $50 when you play 5. So make sure, again, to check out Prizepicks. All right, Robert, let's get to the first order of business, which is the Knicks finally have a head coach, and it is none other than, and I love this guy. So this one's a hard one for me because I think not to the level of Doc Rivers for you, but I know Mike Brown. I like Mike Brown. Mike Brown is a great human being, an unbelievable human being, but he is a little bit of a recirculated head coach. That certainly wasn't the first pick, the second pick, the third pick, maybe the fourth or fifth pick of one Leon Rose and James Dolan of the Knicks. But he is the head coach of a team that, frankly, was really good for the most part last year. And we know what happened to their head coach. Tibbs got fired after taking him as far as he did. What's your take of this Mike Brown hiring? Do you like it? Are you kind of lukewarm like me? I don't love it, but I like Mike Brown. I think he's respected. I think he's got good communication skills, and he takes over a team, frankly, Bob, they're coachable. Like, that's the beauty of this Knicks team is they're coachable because they've got Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, all that were well coached, trained, if you want to say it that way, in the Villanova way,
yeah.
and they're about the right things.
The entire process embarrassed the Knicks publicly in their world because they clearly did not have an immediate plan that made any sense. If they honestly thought that they were going to ransack somebody, namely Dallas or even LA, they were wrong and they looked bad. But what they wound up getting was a pros pro who will understand the whole deal, won't be offended by being the fill-in-the-blank choice, whatever one he was. He's happy to have a job, and he knows the landscape of the league now. As he pointed out yesterday, I've been to 6 different finals with 3 different teams in one way or the other, and he gets it, so he knows he's hired to be fired. He also knows that he has an unusual mandate in the terms of the fact that seldom does a guy take over a team that ready to do something big, knowing that the reason that's his big task, and anything short of that, is he'll be regarded as having failed. He can handle all that, I think, and I think he can handle the back page of the Post if things go badly, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
He's been around the block, and he's a rational, guy with both feet on the ground. So, so I think it's an interesting choice that they're kind of lucky that somebody like this was available to them. That's all. I think that's it. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think having a veteran in New York right now is probably the right move rather than going with somebody that hasn't dealt with the pressure. I mean, this is a guy that dealt with the pressure of coaching LeBron. The last couple of years, he was in Sacramento, but before that he was on Steve Kerr's staff. So he's learned a little bit and seen a lot from coaching in those places specifically. But again, I go back, you better be able to deal with New York. That's the pressure of dealing with New York, especially right now. Like the pressure of coaching the Knicks in the last 30 years hasn't been what it's going to be this year, Bob. Because again, the expectations are you better get at least to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, you have to if you're Mike Brown, especially now with Tatum out and Halbert now. Like the East is yours. It's yours right now for the taking. And Mike Brown's biggest task is going to be, and I think he's pretty even keel, and I think that will help him. But ultimately, you've got a leader like Jalen Brunson. You've got guys that follow him. So I don't think you have to rock the boat too much. I think, you got to play the bench more. We know that. And they got Jordan Clarkson.
And Baselli, who, maybe he's a useful player now.
Both of them at least are going to help alleviate some of the issues from last year and not have to play those guys, such long minutes. But, Clarkson can give you some scoring off the bench. McBride, we know, does that. Baselli's, had a really good year back in the NBA last year. They've got enough. They've got enough now. And again, who's their biggest competition right now in the East? With Tatum out, with Halliburton out, who's the team that scares you?
Well, nobody scares me. Cleveland won 64 games, and they're essentially going to be the same team that I can think of. So you got to deal with them. You've got Indiana. We know it's over for them because they lost Turner and they don't have Halliburton all year. So they had their little fling, and it's over for them. Milwaukee's out of it. It's Cleveland, and then other than that, maybe we can talk a little bit about the Magic. Not that they're going to be a threat, but they're going to be more interesting and better, I think. So we'll talk about them. A couple things about the Knicks that are different for him, or one major difference, although I very seldom do you come in and take a job where your best player, one of your assistant coaches is your best player's father. And now I just noted before we got started that Rick Brunson has already said he's happy to have less responsibility now. I don't know what that, I don't know what kind of conversations they've had.
What does that mean?
What do you mean by that? I mean exactly. But whatever his responsibilities were with Tibbs, he now says he's happy to have lesser responsibilities. That's an unusual dynamic. You don't have it happen too often, but usually these are the Brunsons appear to be very level-headed. Couple of technical things. I'm throwing it out there. There was some people were inferring implying that Jalen Brunson is too ball dominant. Do you think he is? And do you think that that's a thing that maybe he might have to subtly address, if you will?
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't really notice it that much until people were talking about it. Okay, and then I start, you hear it and you start to watch way more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm with you. Right. So I hadn't thought about it in those times because I'm so admiring of his skill and his ability to get where he wants to go any damn time he wants and get shots off, get that floater off, and get things off, over guys a foot taller, and how he does that and how he's mastered his craft, about how to play this game. He's taken, all right, I'm only 6'1", but I'm going to get everything out of it. And boy, if there's anybody right now who's doing it, it's him that's getting everything out of what nature gave him to work with.
I do think there is something to be said for watching them closely in the playoffs, moving the ball a little bit more, right?
One other
that
thing,
ball zipping around a little bit more and getting guys open looks instead of getting them the ball late in shot clock where maybe they're having more difficult shots and having to rely on Mitchell Robinson, getting an offensive rebound, kicking it back or whatnot. I think, and listen, the beauty of Jalen Brunson, you're not going to find a more coachable dude. You are not going to find a more coachable guy. I remember before the season sitting with him for an hour at a college in Charleston. They were down here for training camp and just bullshitting with him. He is just so self-aware, like unlike so few other players at that level that just think like, whatever you're going to tell me, like the one thing watching Brunson, even when I'm talking to him, and I'm not, he's known me for a long time, but we don't stay in touch or anything like that. Most of those guys that I'll see, it'll be, hey, how you doing? And good to see you. And that's it. With him, literally, he just sat there, locked into our conversation for like I said, almost an hour. And and you can tell when somebody is full of shit and just
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
not paying attention, and when somebody actually cares. And I
That's
think
it.
Jalen Brunson is one of those guys, Bob, that just he's rare, and that's why he won 2 national titles with Villanova. He is a rare dude who everybody on that team, the respect is immense, and he'll look in the mirror in the offseason. He will absolutely look in the mirror and say, like, what do I need to do better for us to be able to take that next step? And I think part of that is, hey, you know what? Dribble, dribble, dribble. Yeah, I'm gonna cut down a little bit of that and make sure we move the ball.
One other technical thing, which I would, if I were in charge, I would certainly try to see how it works. I would play both big men more often together because of Towns' ability to shoot and that. And
you can get away with those two.
I would think that certain matchups would be crazy not to.
Right.
To do that against, that should be to me, it should be a viable matchup option for Mike Brown. Because
hey, give me a 4-5 combo that didn't complement each other over the years. Give me somebody that like couldn't step out, like that just clogged the lane so much. Because you're right, Towns, hey, his biggest asset in a way is he's a pick and pop big, so it works with Mitchell Robinson. I 100% agree. You can play those two together. Was there a 4-5 that you can just
trying to think off the top of my head? I don't have it. I'm only thinking about a good one that worked rather well here in Boston.
Yeah.
with McHale and Parrish, and that worked rather well. But
how much so Parrish had a 15-footer, right? Parrish had that kind of 15-footer.
Yeah.
What was McHale's range shooting?
Well, in his prime, before we can get to a funny story for people who don't know it, but it was like that turnaround jumper, 13 to 15 feet, and then we had a funny thing happen in a playoff game against Detroit. He got stuck with the ball near the end of a clock, and he hit a 3, and it was like a light bulb went off his head.
Yeah.
And he began searching threes in the later part of his career a lot more. And I think the thing was, and I kidded him about it, I said, he's thinking, boy, it's a lot nicer out here than going down there and getting the shit kicked out of me, and believe me, and that's a phrase he would use. And so but in no way did he become a reliable 3-point shooter. He became it's conceivable 3-point shooter. His range was definitely the old-fashioned,
That's crazy, though. Think about it, Bob. Like, there aren't many like that really didn't have range beyond, like, foul line.
Well, the game was, I'll tell you who had range and who would be flourishing in this game today. Lambeer.
Yes.
Lambeer was an early big man 3-point
shoot.
shooter of consequence.
Oh, yeah.
But which in those days meant you would take, like, at the most maybe 3 in a game. But the fact is, he was made for this.
Yeah.
And he was early one. I'm trying to think of anyone else that off the top of my head. Of course, Don Nelson famously, which we thought was almost like a personal amusement, he actually converted Manute Bol into somebody that he encouraged to take threes.
Oh, he did. Yes.
That was that's a long time ago too, But but that was Don Nelson. He was the mad scientist of basketball coaches at the time. So, but anyway, I think that's something that I'm going to keep my eye on for the Knicks, whether they'll be willing to play. Because I'll tell you what, you want Robinson on the floor. He is a phenomenal offensive rebounder.
He is.
I mean, it just got so reliable.
He knows his role, Bob. He embraces, hey, unless it's a dunk for the most part, I'm not, or I got nobody in front of me when I get that offensive rebound, I'm kicking that thing out. I am not an offensive weapon in any way other than rebounding the ball and resetting and getting us another possession. And then on the defensive end, I'm a rebound, I'm a block shots, I'm gonna run the floor hard. I'll give him credit. He has been, because coming out of high school, he was a wild card. Like, everybody knew his talent. Actually, people thought his talent on the offensive end would be high level. Because because he was like, people thought he was skilled. He could shoot the ball. He was a big time recruit who there was it was one of those red flag recruitments. He went to he was committed to Western Kentucky. He was on campus at Western Kentucky with Rick Stansbury, who's been known to do a thing or two with recruitment.
Yes.
And then he didn't end up going to Western Kentucky. It was a mess. It was a mess.
Oh, wow.
So I was always like, I don't trust this kid. I just don't trust him because of his situation. And he's become very, very trustworthy in what he does for the Knicks.
Prizepicks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less and at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prizepicks. And Prizepicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prizepicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game.
All right, let's move on. Next topic, Bob. All right. So Luke Cornett left your Boston Celtics for 4 years, $41 million. Congratulations, San Antonio.
Yes.
Congratulations, Luke Cornett. You earned it. You earned it the hard way, and you deserve it. You deserve it. And now the Boston Celtics are left with a front line of, ready, Neemias Queta, Xavier Tillman. They just got Luka Garza, who really didn't play in his former stop in Minnesota. Great college player. Great college
I remember him in
player.
college. I liked him in college. Yeah.
Great scorer in college. And then the
Williams.
What's that? Amari Williams. And Amari Williams, the kid they drafted out of Kentucky who played 3 years in the CAA for Drexel. Those are your 4 big men for the Boston Celtics. I ask you, Bob, have you ever – I know I'm putting you in a tough position here. I don't want to do this, but I have to do this. Have you ever seen a big man situation, not even with the Celtics, in the league, more underwhelming than this at the 5?
I can go back. Yeah, funny you mentioned that, not even in the league, because it was a funny thing with Bill Fitch and myself. When Bill Fitch was coaching the Cavaliers, at one point in the 72, 73 era, 50 years ago plus, I was writing a preseason story for a publication, and I said that the Cavaliers had the worst front court in all of basketball, ABA, NBA included. And I don't even remember the names at the time now, but that's what it was. And of course, by 3 years later, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals with the Celtics with Nate Thurmond and Jim Jones. But anyway, he saw me when they came into town, and he got all over me. He got all over me. Oh, he was so pissed. And we went up. By the way, when he was coaching the Celtics, we went up very friendly. And but this so. At that point, I don't know. The Celtics, you have to go back to the Purvis Ellison era, I guess. I don't know. It's woeful. It's scary. I mean, because they're not going to have Al either. Obviously, Al's crazy to come back here, even though he likes it here. But I hope Al finds a home that he deserves, and who deserves him for big brother role for a team that's a contender. That's what he should be doing. Anyway, no, this is woeful. I mean, we're in. It's a scary thing.
Is it embarrassing? Like, should it be this way, or do you understand it? Do you say, hey, you know what? If Brad could do it, and they're not done yet, they could, they could move Anfernee Simons.
We knew, rational people such as you and me, we understand the Porzingis situation. We understand that, and we knew the Holiday and Porzingis we're probably not going to be here, and for obvious reasons. And I understand that, and I love the way Brad Stevens yesterday, paid them both tribute, and wished them both well, and that's sincere. That's not, but yes, that's Brad Stevens, and he's right. And he didn't want to do that. God knows it, but he had to do his job, and we all know that they had to get under that second apron. Okay, Cornette, you're right. He could have stayed, and they could have, but he's getting rewarded and taking care of that family now forever. So that's good. No, I would have been if I would have been. Is he a full-time center, echelon center? No, he is what he is. And in here he was perfectly suited, and he knew the role, and he fulfilled it beautifully last year. But if he was all we had, I still would be happy. We better off. We would have been better off than what we are now. The Celtics. So, it's a little scary. It really is.
You think? So having said that, where I stood, and I said it in jest somewhat, that it would be better to tank this year and be awful, which we know it would, right? We know the best thing for the Celtics' future, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, is they suck this year and they get a pretty good draft pick. Maybe they get lucky like Dallas did, and they get, somewhere in the top 3 or 4 even of next year. And whether it gets you a really good young player or you can move that pick, it has value to be able to move it. Whatever it is, that's the best scenario. Do you think that scenario is at all realistic, or only if Jaylen Brown or Derek White, get hurt for an extended period of time this year?
How good can they be? It's conceivable if that scenario, which we don't really want to happen, of course, and for their personal sake. No, it gets conceivable. They're going to be having. I don't know. We'll see what you're right. Brad isn't done yet necessarily. Right. We'll see what he comes up with, but we're talking about a 30-35 win team at the most, I think, right now. Right?
I kind of agree, except I look at the East and I'm like, how many teams, if you have, Jaylen, Derek, Pritchard, you still have some talent, Simons, you've got enough that you got 2 all-star-ish caliber players, right? You do have 2, whether you call them, lock all-stars or fringe all-stars.
500 would be a goal. And to me, that'd be a goal.
Make the playoffs.
What do you want with that group? But that'd be a goal. I got a question: do we know for sure what Brad really thinks of Simons?
No.
We know his plus and minuses.
I wonder, Bob. I wonder if part of this with Simons was, okay, well, first of all, you could make the trade, right, and get rid of Drew's contract, number one. But number 2 is like getting a player back that's not yet hit their prime, that's got a high ceiling, that he knows he can maybe build up into a more trade bait, if you can do that. Because he's going to put up numbers this year, and he's not going to be stuck playing in Portland. That's the other part, is no matter what you do in Portland, nobody's watching. What you do in Boston, if Simons has some of those 30-point games in Boston, it rings completely different, and it will increase your trade value. So I wonder if he was looking for a guy like that rather than another 30-year-old with not a great contract. Get a young guy that you're not sure on, but even if you're not fully on board, okay, you know what? At worst case scenario, we're going to get more for him in a year when we play him 30 minutes a game in Boston.
I was a little, I'm surprised. I was aware of Simons, and he got my attention with 40-point games and stuff this year, fine. But I didn't really know a whole lot about him. And then when the deal was made, the rampant skepticism in the league about him, and that they're going to move him, right away. So his reputation isn't it's as a one-way player, and now that doesn't make him a bad person necessarily. You know what I'm saying? Is he beyond the idea of he needs to shore up the defensive end of it? Is there any other implications about him bringing any kind of baggage, or that I should?
I don't think so. No, I think his character is high, and I think the good thing is put him in a backcourt with Derek White, who's maybe as good a perimeter defender as there is in the league right now, and Jaylen Brown, who when he wants to be, can be a really, really good perimeter defender as well. I think, again, you might get into some bad habits in Portland, right? You're playing with some of these other young guys, Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp. They don't really have that veteran there to teach. Derek White you're not going to find a better veteran to teach than Derek White.
No, we know he knows. We don't know that he's a teacher yet. That's the thing. Is he going to assume, understand to try to assume that responsibility to take it?
You know who he committed to, right? You know who he committed to in high school? Rick Pitino. Sorry, not Richard. Rick Pitino at Louisville, and then everything happened at Louisville.
Okay. I didn't realize that.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
That's what happened. Good. Yeah, he committed to Rick. So, Rick really liked him. Evaluated him early. I think he was down in Florida, maybe. But I remember Rick talking about him, and he loved the kid on the circuit, on the AAU circuit. All right. What is – I have a few moves written in front of me. Free agency was kind of blah this year. Let's face it. There weren't huge names involved in trades. The Kevin Durant trade happened the day of the draft. After that, it was kind of blah. Here are a couple moves for you. DeAndre Ayton was waived and signed with the Lakers. I think that's very significant. Indiana was active in trading Myles Turner to Milwaukee, signed a 4-year, $107 million deal. The Bucks waived Damian Lillard in order to be able to get Myles Turner and stretched his contract. Indiana replaced Myles Turner with Jay Huff. Lillard will miss this year and sign somewhere. Denver traded Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson to Brooklyn. That was interesting to me. Again, we went through the Orlando. I know you mentioned them earlier. They got Desmond Bane. Gave up a lot for Desmond Bane. But got him and then signed Tyus Jones, who I love. I think he's a great point guard for that team. Great point guard. Because you've got now Bane, who can shoot the hell out of it. Paolo, who's a top 10 player. If he's not there, he will be there by the end of the year. And Wagner, who's so now you got you're missing a point guard. That's what you were missing. You were clearly, and I'm not saying Tyus Jones is like a top 10 point guard in the league. He's not. But you know what he is? He is a pass first, unselfish, heady, high basketball IQ point guard. And if you put him with 4 dudes who can score, man, he is going to be perfect. I wouldn't be surprised if Tyus Jones is playing 28, 30 minutes a game for Orlando because he fits exactly what they need. And, Jalen Suggs has been hurt. Suggs is not, in my opinion, very different than Tyus Jones. Suggs is more of a scoring point.
Also picked up Norman Powell.
Yep.
Norman Powell quietly scored a lot of points last year, by the way, with people out off the radar screen. But he got my attention. Yep. They are what I love to call a growth stock. If I'm a fan of theirs,
you're buying.
Feeling nice.
Yeah, you're buying.
Right, I am. I'm buying in. I'm investing. I'm investing my emotional energy into the Heat. Into the Magic. If I'm
who Paolo is? You know who Paolo? My comparison for Paolo has been ever since I first saw him in high school. I don't know if I ever told you this comp, and I probably did, but you didn't know back then when I talked Paolo Banchero. You were like, okay, I know the name. I'm gonna remember the name, but I'm not gonna remember anything else. Chris Webber a little bit for Paolo.
Well, that bothers me. He's not one of my favorite players.
I know, but he was so talented.
Oh, he was enormously. Oh, and he had the physical ability, the hands.
Yes.
The
passing.
The passing, yeah.
The big, strong frame.
I still didn't think he ever figured out a game that put it all together the right way. I think he's one of those guys.
Paolo will. Right. I'm not comparing him to Chris Webber. I'm not comparing him between the years. Right. I'm comparing him physically, his gifts he was blessed with, and that big, strong, athletic, skilled forward. Like,
you're right. There was skill. If you're gonna, it just didn't the
Like,
whole.
how about Derek Coleman being another one? How about like a Derek Coleman type? Another one that
another guy
years.
who I thought he's starting forward on my all squandered talent team. Is he should have walked into the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
And he held himself back, and Rasheed Wallace, another one, and Chris Webber. People love Chris Webber, but I just didn't think he had a game that he should have had with the skills that he had.
You're right.
I'm a member of the Bob Carroll fan club. I sent my dues in recently, and as well as Franz Wagner. I mean that team, they got guys I like, and that's good. What did you mentioned about Turner? So how do you read Indiana on this?
I don't understand it. And Kevin Pritchard's made a lot of really, really good moves. Okay. Pritchard and Chad Buchanan, his right-hand man, they've obviously made great moves to get to where they were last year at a small market like that when I thought they were dead and buried a few years ago. This one, it's funny. I don't understand it, but I do. Okay, here's what I'll say is Myles Turner in the postseason was underwhelming to me. He was. I mean, he'd go through games and get like 2 rebounds.
Moments only.
Yeah, he just, I love Myles. He's like the nicest dude ever, but he's not the toughest dude ever. Okay. So on one hand, I say to myself, if I'm Indiana, do I want to pay him $25 million a year? No, I don't. I don't want to pay that. But what's the alternative? The alternative is you let him walk, you don't pay him, and now you got Jay Huff. And you got to find some other guys, obviously, that are able to fill in that gap. But, the other part of it is, again, this year without Haliburton, it's almost like the same thing as Boston with Tatum, without Tatum. You kind of you want to have that off year and then bounce back. You want to have the year, don't be mediocre, don't get in the play-in, because the play-in is like, it's a forgettable year. It's a forgettable year that, okay, great, you got in the play-in, you got the 7th, 8th seed, awesome. Then you got knocked out in the first round, and now you're picking 19th in the draft. Instead of, all right, have a bad year, and you're picking 8th in the draft. And again, whether it's the 8th best player or you can use that to put with something else in a trade. Like people forget that. They're like, well, what's the 8th pick worth? Who is the 8th pick? Because there are like 3 or 4 top players coming out in next year's draft. And there'll be a few more that will join. Darren Peterson Jr. going to Kansas, AJ DeBonsa going to BYU, Cameron Boozer going to Duke. There'll be a few guys joining those 3. But like the 8th pick has value trade-wise. It has value, way more value than the 19th pick. 19th pick, most people are, okay, whatever. I take it or leave it. It's a roll of the dice. The 8th pick, you're expecting out of the 8th pick to get a rotation guy for sure. And you're really hoping you're going to get a starter out of that 8th pick in a few years. Maybe not year 1. So yeah, Indiana, I think maybe that's the deal a little bit, Bob. It's just like, hey, you know what? We're not really going to win at a high level anyway. We don't think Myles Turner is worth $25 million a year. We're going to kind of let him walk and fill in the gap this year and save some money for next year.
You always have to. I mean, I sometimes forget quickly that you have to factor in the money, obviously, as the dominant thing. Okay, you mentioned a guy that I'm going to throw out there. What about DeAndre Ayton? What is the possibility for the Lakers?
It's just up here. It's just up here. Like I remember the first time I saw him.
How many times have we said this, by the way, in the last 5 minutes about somebody? And it's true that just my great mentor, one of my great mentors that I learned so much basketball, one of the great people I ever knew, Frank Power, assistant coach at BC, freshman coach, and before that, and headmaster at Charlestown High School, the whole bit. And Frank Power taught me, and he talked about the connection. The connection. And this is what we're talking about. To be a truly great player, you must have the connection between here and the talent, and with the guys we're talking about lack the proper connection. That the raw skill is one thing. Skill's a start, but it's only a start. It's only a beginning to have the raw skill. You've got to have the connection. And so we're talking about these guys, Weber and Rashid and who's the other we had? Derek Coleman and Ayton. Yeah, the connection not there.
Yeah, and Ayton's 28 years old. I remember first time I saw him, I think he was 14, 15. He played against, I think, Thon Maker in an AU event. Came straight from the
That's a name
Bahamas.
I heard in a while.
And I remember I told him after the game, Thon Maker kicked his ass. And everybody had been talking about Ayton. And after the game, he wouldn't give Thon Maker credit. Like there were a bunch of us reporters, there were 3 or 4 reporters there. And I just wanted to say hello to him, introduce myself, whatever. And I let everybody leave. And then I said something to him. I'll never forget it. I said, hey, DeAndre, no matter what you thought happened in that game, fake it. Give him all the credit in the world. Give Thon Maker all the credit in the world. He had a really good game. You didn't play well, whatever it was, fake it. And you knew there was immaturity there. This is a kid that when he came over to the U.S., everybody was on him. Everybody. They all wanted something from him. Money-wise, he did every shoe circuit. He did Adidas. He did Nike. He did Under Armour. Everybody was after him, trying to, get him and make a buck off him. Goes to Arizona. Remember, he was kind of mired in what I always said was an inaccurate story written by somebody at ESPN. Sean Miller, $100,000 in DeAndre Ayton. He might have got paid. I don't think it was by Sean Miller. I think it was probably by an agent at that point. He goes to Phoenix. He's the number 1 pick.
Yeah, number 1 pick.
Number 1 pick ahead of Luka, ahead of same year as Trae Young. And again, his numbers, listen, he's averaging a double-double in his career. He's averaging, his numbers are 16.4 points and 10.5 rebounds over the course of his career, Bob. So he can't be that bad. Now, is he lazy at times? Does he have bad habits? Is he great defensively? No, like he's got some issues. The beauty is for both Luka, who's got some issues too, and DeAndre Ayton, they get 1 full year with the best guy ever, maybe to deal with that in our era, maybe not ever, but the best guy in our era to deal with preparation, maturity, how to treat your body and prepare your body the right way, routine, how to handle yourself like a professional, all of that won LeBron James.
Having said that, and I know this came up at the topic at the time, but now I'm just throwing it out there again. Just think there's any chance that aspect of LeBron, the preparation factor, the thing that's enabled him to last all these years at this level, will in any way rub off on Luka or not? You think Luka will?
Yeah, I do.
I do what I do, and I've gotten this far doing it my way, and the hell with the world, and I'll keep doing it my way. But
I don't think so. I don't think he can be that way with LeBron. I think he's the one individual that no matter who you are, except a young Kyrie, maybe a young Kyrie didn't quite respect LeBron the way he should have. But everybody else, I just think LeBron's at a different level. And again, just watching him and especially at 40, I think even more watching what he does at 40.
Well, that's the whole point, that he's still viable at this age, that seldom no one has ever been. And it's because, among other things, he's figured out how to take care of the body. If it costs him $1 million a year, which it does, he's willing to do it. But I don't know. Anyway, I've just given Lucas the one, that's the rap on him,
Yeah, his body, his conditioning, his off-season routine. And part of the deal is, where is he this off-season? We have no idea if he even
if there is an off-season.
LeBron more than, a day here, a day there when he flies in. But, I think Ayton probably is more apt to learn from LeBron than even Luka at this point. But it may be too late. I mean, listen, he's been in the league 7 years. So it's hard to change habits, for 7 years in NBA, plus in college, plus in high, it's hard. And here's a kid who didn't come from much in the Bahamas and got paid a lot of money. So I always said this, somebody said this to me about Andrew Wiggins. And it was, Andrew Wiggins would always play at the level of his competition, right? Super talented, super, super talented. But they paid him crazy money in the NBA after he didn't guard at all in the NBA. So it's like, if you're Andrew Wiggins and they give you $30 million a year, whatever it was at that point, $25 million a year, and they're rewarding you and they're saying like, hey, we're going to give you this contract and you haven't really guarded much the first few years, well, why are you then going to decide you're going to guard? Like, isn't it hard then to say like, okay, now I got to go out there and guard? Like,
yeah, sure.
Right. So like Ayton, he's put up 16 and 10. Now this could be a little bit of a wake up call. Getting waived, that's embarrassing to have to have Portland basically say, we don't even want you near our young big man. We don't want you near him. Go, get away, and go to another Western Conference team. By the way, you go anywhere you want. You're going to go to another Western Conference team. That means like they think you're addition by subtraction. Clearly.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of, so we can wrap up. Speaking of itinerant big men, our old friend Kelly Olynyk is once again in the agate today.
Yes.
Kelly Olynyk, ladies and gentlemen, is either set a new record or has tied one held by many or few, as he's moved for the third time in one off season. Kelly Olynyk is, as of yesterday, or as of this moment, but fasten your seatbelt, is become a member of the San Antonio Spurs, joining Victor Wembanyama and our old friend Luke Cornett. Since leaving Boston in 2017, Kelly Olynyk has played for Miami, Houston, Detroit, Utah, Toronto, New Orleans, and in this offseason moved from New Orleans to Washington, and now Washington to San Antonio. Would he have been something we could use?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, he's fine. He's fine. He's a good piece. He's a good piece.
So he's actually played for 7 teams and has been a property of 9. And this is the 10th.
34 years old, and Kelly Olynyk has made career earnings, Bob, $108 million.
Not nice.
Not bad for a journeyman big man, which is really what he is.
Remember our last sighting of him? He had a great game, like a 25-point game. Yes. That was his farewell. Anyway, I'm just saying, Kelly, San Antonio. So there he is. Okay.
Well, we will we'll wrap up here. We'll get back next week with Gary. I'm headed out to watch the top Adidas players this weekend in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And next weekend I'll go to the Peach Jam in Augusta. The only advantage, well, there are other advantages, but travel-wise, the only advantage I have of living in Charleston, both of those venues drivable within 3 hours.
Oh, well, that's a bonus. Sure.
It is a bonus. It is a bonus.
Very good.
I'll see the top. This class is very underwhelming. This class right now, which we're going to college next year, very underwhelming. But, the big difference now is all these international kids that are trying to go to college because they can make more money playing in college right now than they can staying overseas. So it is flooded this season with a lot of really good international players. If you're not a lottery pick or you're not eligible for the draft age-wise, a lot of these international guys are going to college, and a lot of the college programs are taking a shot on these kids. Illinois specifically, Brad Underwood, the head coach at Illinois, has loaded up on international guys, Bob. Part because I think he feels like they're easier to coach. Also, easier to coach.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah.
So. Okay, Brian.
All right. Well, we are presented as always by Prizepicks. Make sure you join us next week, and we'll see you soon.